Hello, and are we there yet? Yeah, we're there yet. Hello and happy Friday. My name is Christopher Durham. We'll get started in just a minute. Let's let a few people hop on. Got two viewers out there. Hello, Mindy. How are you doing? All right. Hey. Breaking news as always. We like to come to you. I'm going to do some news in just a few minutes. Let some more folks get on there. All right. We're getting going. All kinds of crazy stuff. So lots of stuff today. If you're scared of losing access to compounded GLP-1s or you have faced supply shortages for Zepbound or Mounjaro, we're going to talk about the court case today that could decide whether you ever get that option again. The FDA says the shortage is over. We've been talking about this for some time now. Eli Lilly says they can meet demand, and just like that, the door slams shut on affordable compounded options. But a federal judge is asking tough questions, and what happens next could decide whether those options come back or stay gone for good. Before we go any further, let me say this clearly. I am not a doctor. So this is not medical advice. This is entertainment. This is informational. So if you need help with your healthcare journey, your weight loss journey, please talk to your doctor. In these cases where we talk about court cases, I'll also tell you I am not a lawyer. So we do the best to interpret this for you based off of our skill sets, our experiences, but it's a 73-page court case, or it's a 73-page transcript. So you're welcome to go back and take a look at it yourself or have an attorney look at it if you need to. At the end of the day, Lorraine and I are patients, just like many of you. My name is Christopher Durham. Together with my wife, Lorraine, we've lost more than 150 pounds using GLP-1 medications. I've personally used Zepbound, Mounjaro, and yes, I have used compounded Tirzepatide. I have lost 103 pounds since September 2023. At my heaviest, I was almost 300 pounds. I've battled the disease for most of my life. We've paid out of pocket for every single dose. Our insurance does not cover these medications. We run a small business and buy our own coverage through the ACA marketplace, and not one plan at any price offered coverage for obesity treatment medications like these. So when access to compounded Tirzepatide was shut down, we didn't just see it as a policy decision, we felt it personally. Because when you're paying $1,000 a month, or in our case, we were using the savings card, paying about $650 for branded, or you're paying for compounded without insurance, this stuff's very, very expensive. Compounded options are sometimes the only path forward. So when the FDA shut down compounded Tirzepatide, or tried to, we paid attention, because that didn't just affect manufacturers or compounding pharmacies or telehealth. It affected people like us, people like you. This video is about what happened in court on April 24th. When the Outsourcing Facilities Association sued the FDA, Eli Lilly stepped in to defend the FDA's decision, and a federal judge asked some questions that every patient should discover. So this is actually a follow-up to that. So we got the transcripts. They had been on hold kind of in secret, and they were allowed to redact some things out of them. So we actually can see all of what was said in the court today, and we're going to talk you through what was said in the court. Federal judge asked some questions that every patient deserves to hear. So let me start with who was in the room for this hearing. The hearing took place on April 24th, 2025 in Fort Worth, Texas, in the courtroom of U.S. District Judge Mark T. Pittman. So let me pop up a graphic here. So here's actually the transcript for it. Mark T. Pittman, that's Mr. Pittman himself. If that name sounds familiar to you, it should. This is the same judge who previously ruled in favor of the FDA in a nearly identical case. So actually in this case, about compounded semaglutide as well. So there's two cases going on, one on Tirzepatide, one on semaglutide. But in this Tirzepatide case, he appeared far more skeptical, asking hard-pointed questions both sides. So he had actually ruled in favor of the FDA earlier, and they went back and said, hey, are you sure? Because we're going to take it to the higher court. He said, let me review. So this was part of that review process. This was not a trial. It was a summary judgment hearing, meaning no jury, no witnesses, and no new evidence, just legal arguments and the review of the FDA's official administrative record. Judge Pittman's job was to decide one thing. Did the FDA follow the law when it removed Tirzepatide from the drug shortage list? there were three parties in the rooms. The plaintiffs, which was the Outsourcing Facilities Association, or the OFA, that represent 503B compounding pharmacies, so those larger outsourcing pharmacies. So those are large federally regulated facilities that make compounded medications for hospitals and clinics and for a lot of telehealth providers as well. The other party that was in the room was the defendant, so the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, represented by the Department of Justice. And there was an intervener, so they allowed Eli Lilly to come in and play in this as well. Eli Lilly, of course, being the pharmaceutical giant behind Mounjaro and Zepbound. Lilly was not named in the lawsuit, but voluntarily stepped in to support the FDA's position. Well, why did they do that? Well, our answer is pretty obvious, because they're the only company legally allowed to sell Tirzepatide. They own the patent for it in the U.S. There's huge financial ramifications for them. So this case isn't just about regulatory interpretation. It's about access, it's about monopoly, and it's about whether a single manufacturer's confidential supply data should override the voices of providers, pharmacies, and patients. So the question then becomes, what was this case really about? At its very core, this case is a decision the FDA made in December of 2023 to remove Tirzepatide from its official drug shortage list. That move may look administrative on the surface, but in reality, it triggered a seismic shift. Because once a medication is delisted from that list, 503B compounding facilities are prohibited from producing it. So the only reason those larger facilities could make it was because it was on the shortage list. That instantly made compounded Tirzepatide illegal to manufacture. Now, obviously, it's been dragged out and the court cases have slowed everything down, so it didn't immediately stop. But as we all know, tens of thousands of patients, many of whom had no affordable alternative, were still using it. And since Eli Lilly holds the patent and is the only FDA-approved supplier, they became the sole legal source of the drug almost overnight. This might sound like a supply chain dispute, but it's not. For patients, this is about access. It's about choice. It's about affordability. And for many, it's about staying on a life-changing treatment they finally found after years of struggle. We're talking about people who were paying $250 or $300 a month. Lorraine and I were doing that for compounded Tirzepatide and suddenly faced with an $1,100 to $650, $499 now. The prices are all over the map, but it's been coming down. Monthly bill for the branded versions of Zepbound and Mounjaro. It's not a gentle transition. That's a brick wall, and many people simply will not be able to do it. And what makes this even harder is there's no advance notice, no public discussion, no patient input, no phase-out plan, just a bureaucratic decision behind closed doors and a press release. This case is about whether that decision was legal. But for the people it affected, the question is also moral. Is it right for an agency to cut off access without considering the consequences for real people? That's why the OFA filed this lawsuit, and that's why patients are watching this one closely. So the OFA's main argument, well, the OFA's lead attorney, Andrew Grossman, opened by stating plainly that the FDA's decision to delist Tirzepatide was not based on a rigorous analysis of supply and demand, but rather on faith in numbers supplied by Eli Lilly. He argued, why did the FDA rely on Lilly's supply numbers? Because that's what Lilly gave them. Why accept Lilly's claim it could meet demand? Because Lilly said so without evidence. Grossman emphasized that the agency had not conducted any independent verification and accused the FDA of failing to question inconsistency, failing to define a methodology, and failing to demand supporting documentation for Lilly's estimates. So let's flip over to this. In his words, the FDA didn't audit the numbers, didn't cross-check with pharmacy level shortages, didn't even define the terms it used. They just said, sure, we believe you. That's not a process, that's a rubber stamp. Judge Pittman pressed him on this point. Judge Pittman asked, did the FDA cherry pick the data to get the result it wanted? Grossman replied, no, Your Honor, Lilly cherry picked. The FDA just said, looks good to us. So let me repeat that. No, Your Honor, Lilly cherry picked. The FDA just said, looks good to us. At another point, The judge challenged the foundation of the agency's logic. If this figure, central to the FDA's decision, was never defined, never explained, and never validated, how can I treat it as credible, he asked. Grossman noted that the number in question came from a letter Lilly sent to the agency, promising more detail later, a promise that was never fulfilled. Despite this, the FDA still used it to justify their action. In response to questions about judicial scope, Judge Pittman remarked, to quote our late Pope, "Who am I to judge? But if I'm being asked to evaluate whether the agency followed the law, I need to see their reasoning, and I don't." This wasn't just a legal issue, it was a question of public trust. Grossman made that clear. When the FDA changes the legal rights of every compounder in America and does it with no transparent data, no public input, and no definition of terms, that's not regulation. That's policy made in the dark. And for patients, the question becomes, should a federal agency that controls access to your medication rely entirely on one company's unverified word, especially when the company has billions at stake? So we go into the next section, the time window problem. Grossman also argued that the FDA used an inappropriate and overly generous time frame to assess whether tirzepatide was still in shortage, instead of evaluating data on a month-to-month basis, something that could have highlighted ongoing gaps in supply. The FDA looked at cumulative trends over a long period, potentially masking the more recent problems. Grossman said, the longer the period, the more you dilute the recent data. If you look month to month, the numbers show demand still exceeds supply. Grossman warned that this approach effectively smooths out temporary spikes in demand or persistent bottlenecks that real patients feel every day. Judge Pittman asked, what would have been a more reasonable time period? Grossman answered that the point wasn't to prescribe a specific window, but to require the FDA to justify its own methodology. He said the agency did not offer any rationale at all, no explanation, no comparison, just a conclusion. That's not how administrative law is supposed to work. Judge Pittman then noted, it's easy to criticize, but without a reasoned explanation, how can I know this wasn't arbitrary? Agencies don't get to skip the why. The judge continued, if you're removing a drug from the shortage list, especially one being used by thousands of patients, shouldn't you be extra transparent? So let's bring this back to what it means for patients. If your compounded tirzepatide was suddenly unavailable, you didn't care what statistical window the FDA used. You cared what you couldn't get when you couldn't get your refill, that you had to cut your dose in half, that you had no idea when or if it would be available again. Those moments matter, and Grossman's argument was that the FDA ignored them entirely. So the next piece they jumped into was this whole conversation around missing evidence. And it was one of the most explosive parts of the hearing, focused on a single data point, a supply figure that Eli Lilly gave the FDA, which played a critical role in the agency's decision to remove tirzepatide from the shortage list. The number came in a letter from Eli Lilly. They said they would provide more explanation later, and they never did. Grossman hammered this point home. The number is in a letter from Lilly. Lilly says they'll explain it later, but they never do. And the FDA just says, we find that credible. That's not evidence. Judge Pittman challenged the agency's rationale. Why is that a reasonable basis for the FDA's decision? He followed up with a pointed question. If that number doesn't appear anywhere else in the record and it's not defined, how can it be considered reasonable? How can it be considered reliable? At another point, the judge added, this figure appears to be the linchpin of your analysis, but I see no documentation, no audit, and no independent validation. It's a number with a footnote that never got written. In response, the DOJ attorney Oliver McDonald, representing the FDA, defended the agency's process. He said, at the time of the decision, Lilly had fulfilled all open orders and had inventory on hand. It also had unprocessed drug product it could finish quickly to meet demand. He continued, "We had trend data, we had inventory growth, we had projections, and the projections were proving accurate month after month." McDonald insisted that the agency had no reason to doubt Lilly. The FDA has been tracking their inventory submissions for months and saw consistent fulfillment. We had no reason to believe the company was inflating or manipulating the data. But Judge Pittman remained concerned about the absence of transparency. So he said, we're talking about a critical shortage decision affecting patients nationwide, and the most pivotal figure in the analysis came from a letter with no supporting data. That is troubling. For patients like you and I, this isn't just about administrative procedure. This is about whether the numbers used to cut off your access to treatment were ever actually verified. Moving onward, the patient cost of getting this wrong. The OFA presented real-world data, including screenshots from McKesson, Cardinal, and other major drug wholesalers, showing that multiple tirzepatide dosages were marked as backordered or out of stock for extended periods. This wasn't a one-week hiccup. There were multi-week gaps, some lasting from early October through the end of December. Grossman argued that these gaps were more than isolated delays. They were concrete signs that Lilly had not caught up with demand in any meaningful way, and it was not sustainable. He told the court, "We have patients unable to get their doses, pharmacies with shelves that are empty for weeks, and screenshots showing these shortages were not hypothetical, they were happening." The FDA dismissed this evidence out of hand. He added that for a regulatory agency to simply waive actual documented shortages, especially in the face of projected demand exceeding 5 million U.S. patients, is to deny reality. Judge Pittman asked, "Wouldn't a reasonable agency have followed up on that? Even a phone call to the distributor?" Grossman responded they didn't follow up. They didn't validate, they didn't ask, they relied solely on what Lilly told them. Let's be clear about this. Let's be clear about what it means in the real world. If a patient walks into a pharmacy week after week and is told, "We still do not have your medication," that's a shortage. If your GLP-1 treatment is interrupted for a month and your hunger cravings and blood sugar all come roaring back, that's a medical crisis. But according to the FDA, it wasn't a shortage. According to Lilly, everything was fine. According to patients, it was a nightmare. And that's the disconnect this case is exposing. The difference between a supply chain chart and a real person trying to stay on life-changing medication, a real person trying to fill their medication. So the question for all of us, of course, is what happens next. Judge Pittman did not issue a ruling from the bench. That's standard for summary judgment cases, especially ones involving national policy. He's now reviewing thousands of pages, the legal briefs, the administrative record, the FDA's internal reasoning, and the other oral arguments presented in court. He could issue a decision as early as May, but it might take until June or July. The timeline is uncertain, but the stakes are not. If Judge Pittman rules in favor of the FDA's delisting of Tirzepatide would be vacated. That means it would be legally erased like it never happened. 503B outsourcing facilities could legally resume compounding Tirzepatide. Access could be restored within weeks, especially for patients who already have provider relationships and active prescriptions. It wouldn't be the end of the fight because Lilly or the FDA could appeal, but it would be a major reset and a powerful check on how the FDA makes decisions that affect millions of Americans. If, on the other hand, Pittman sides with the FDA, then the delisting stays in place. Compounded Tirzepatide remains off limits. Eli Lilly remains the sole legal source, and for tens of thousands of patients, the brick wall stays up. That means high monthly price tags, insurance hurdles, denials, appeals, wait lists, and for some people, giving up on treatment altogether. So this isn't just a case to watch. It's a decision that will shape the future of GLP-1 access for patients across the country. So the case is about more than just law, and we know that. It's about power, who holds it, how it's used, and who gets left behind when decisions are made without transparency. It's about the kind of healthcare system we want one where access is determined by evidence, fairness, and accountability, or one where confidential projections from billion-dollar companies are treated as fact, while the lived experiences of patients are ignored. It's about whether regulators have a responsibility not just to the pharmaceutical industry, but to the people those drugs are meant to serve, to the American patients. And it's about you. If you ever had to skip a dose because of cost, if you ever had to ration your medication because of a back order, if you've ever felt alone in this fight for access, this case is your story too. We want to be clear though. Eli Lilly is an innovator. They brought Tirzepatide to market, and it's helping millions of people. They should absolutely be able to be profitable and be wildly profitable. But there is a difference between being profitable and being obscenely profitable. There's a difference between taking advantage of American patients at the expense of access. When profit margins start to shut patients out of care, they need to stop. That's not healthcare. That's something else altogether. So here's our call to action from Eli Lilly. And if you've heard me say this before, release all vial dosages of Tirzepatide, of Zepbound, to increase flexibility and access. Lower your prices across the board to reflect the scale of demand and the reality of out-of-pocket patient cost. You have the power to end the entire compounding conversation, not through courtrooms, but through compassion and lower prices. You can save the millions you're spending on lawyers and put that towards building trust, access, and long-term loyalty. You can be the big pharma villain that many Americans already believe you are, or you can be the hero. We would call you to be the hero. Lower your prices, release the vials, and you will more than make up for the reduced price by dramatically increasing your volumes and your profitability. Patients want to stay on this medication. I would more than happily take Zepbound every week. More than happily. Make it affordable, make it accessible, make it available. You can build an army of patient advocates, people who know firsthand the life-changing impact of GLP-1s. 74% of Americans live with overweight or obesity. If you lead with compassion instead of courtroom control, you could become the most trusted, loved, and valuable healthcare company in the world. So we're going to keep covering this. We're going to read the ruling the moment it drops, and we'll explain what it means for patients, for you, line by line, piece by piece, with no spin and no sugarcoating, because this community deserves clarity. You deserve to know who's making these decisions and how they impact your health. If this video helped you understand what's really happening, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. And if you've been affected by the shutdown of compounded Tirzepatide, share your story in the comments. Or if you're just scared, tell us about it. We read every single comment, and more importantly, so do other patients looking for hope. So does Eli Lilly. Your voice matters, your experience matters, and your access matters. All right, let's see who all's out here. There's a lot going on. I'm going to pull my lovely wife in over here too. Maybe we'll talk to a few of you.
All right.
298 people, 76 likes. I know we can do better on likes there. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe while you're there.
Rolling in like on Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
So we can update. Okay, so it sounds to me like the judge was thinking maybe there's something to this. Maybe the FDA acted a little too quickly, and so he really wanted to go through all the evidence, which might take a week, it might take a month, it might take till July.
Who knows?
IDK.
He definitely had questions, and he definitely was worried about what was going on.
Well, and I think he should be, because if the FDA really hinged their whole thing on a piece of information they were supposed to get from Eli Lilly, but then never received, that seems wrong. So I don't know. But so did that do anything in terms of where Zepbound is on the shortage list today? Is it currently off
It
the
didn't
shortage
move.
list?
It stayed exactly where it is. So the FDA declared it as off the shortage list. It is still off the shortage list.
Okay.
But as of today, the FDA has said until the court case is resolved, they're not going to do any enforcement. But that hasn't changed. I mean, that's been out there.
i.e. compounding pharmacies can make compounded Tirzepatide.
Well, the 503Bs, I don't think there's any 503Bs still left doing it, though. I think they've the 503As are continuing to do it, but 503As, some of them continue to do it based off of a different legal standing. So this is, their legal statement is we can do it because we're doing personalized prescriptions.
Right.
That will probably be resolved in a whole other court case. Mm-hmm. So it's.
But big compounding pharmacies like Empower are both a 503A and a 503B.
Mm-hmm.
Empower, PS, is being sued by Eli Lilly. So Empower continues to fill orders for compounded Tirzepatide.
Yeah. So who knows?
So we don't know when this lawsuit will be resolved. I'm very interested that the judge said, yeah, I'll go back and look at this again. Like, oh yeah, maybe this doesn't make sense. And I also think it's very interesting that Eli Lilly jumped in to defend a government agency.
Well, we've known that. That's been around for months. I mean, of course they did. I mean, if you were running that company, you would, because it's your patent.
They're making $35 billion a year on Zepbound and Mounjaro. So
there's no big surprise there.
Yeah, but the government accepts help from private industry? Interesting.
Well, it wasn't the government. That's not really how it works.
The FDA is a government agency.
Right, but the government
wasn't defended by the Department of Justice.
Right, but the way you phrased it just isn't accurate. The government wasn't getting help from the FDA. The FDA came in and could also testify to the judge.
So I'm talking about Eli Lilly helping the FDA.
Yeah, that's not the way it was working. They were just an interested party that also came in and participated.
They were an interested party that came in and gave evidence?
Yes.
Supporting the FDA's decision.
Correct.
It was evidence that they gave to the FDA whereby the FDA made the decision based on Eli Lilly's evidence.
Correct. It's a circular logic.
So Eli Lilly said, oh, well, since we gave the evidence to the FDA, we'll come in on this lawsuit and give it to the judge.
So let's see who's out here. J-Lo, I assume you're not the J-Lo, but if you are, you're fabulous. Says, is what you're discussing the same news that they put behind the paywall? I don't know. I've only seen Dave's headline. I haven't seen what's behind the paywall.
We don't go behind Dave's paywall, so we don't know.
But we're all trying to make a living. So if they, I can see where Dave is. Let's see your craft eccentricity. Can you read that, or is it too small for you?
It's a little small, but I'll try.
I can change it. Hold on.
It's really starting to look like they are weighing up the costs of 80 million Americans with diabetes and prediabetes versus drugs that make them healthier and they make more money out of the sick. I think it goes back to Eli Lilly. Are they concerned about profits, or are they concerned about patients? Yeah.
Well, I think it's possible to do both, though. I think there is so much profit potential here that you could serve every patient and still make billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
I don't even think that's an issue. So let's see here. Chasing Sunshine says Carolina RX still shows due to shortage that they cannot fill the meds. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah. Here in the USA, they want to make the same bucks from you as they make if you're sick. Keeping you sick is beneficial to the system. These drugs are needed by the people and should be the same price globally. Well, we certainly agree with they should be the same price globally. Yeah. Nia Jonesy. I wasn't able to get my medication last year, April and May, from Walgreens. Us too, girl. Found a small pharmacy and have been able to get it every month. I call Walgreens sometimes, and they still say back ordered, shaking my head. Yeah, so, I went on a full-time job search for Tirzepatide when Christopher and his doctor put him on it. And it really was a full-time job. And even now, even in the past, like say past months since January, it's still not readily available. It has to be ordered. And this is what CVS and Walgreens told me. It can take a few days. It can take a few weeks. They don't keep it in stock. Phone call.
Spam.
Anyway, we see that in North Carolina, right? We see that it's not readily available for what it's worth. DJ Meyer says, bottom line, if it is helping so many people, keep it going at an affordable amount. Let's actually work for the people. Appreciate your update.
Well, and DJ, to your point, and I think this is where it gets kind of mixed up. Compounding at volume, so at scale, tens of thousands of people, was never imagined when all of these regulations were written. They had no idea. They thought you would walk in and your daughter had an allergy and the compounding pharmacy would make one thing for you. So all of these changes have kind of come out of the blue at scale that nobody could have ever imagined. The solution to this, all of this ultimately is really not compounding. It's really getting better regulations and pricing and from not just this manufacturer, Lilly, but from Novo Nordisk and from anybody else who comes along. So building a system that makes sure that companies are profitable and that patients get affordable access to the medications they need. Compounding is just a Band-Aid. It can't go on forever.
Well, it comes down to price, right? So I am currently on compounded Tirzepatide because of price, because my insurance doesn't cover it, because I can't afford $650 a month with the coupon for the branded Zepbound. So if you took price out of the equation, and Eli Lilly could certainly drop their price, then there wouldn't be a discussion about compounding.
Yeah.
Jody Frazier says, I have to pay out of pocket. I wish I paid less, but I would give up every damn luxury on earth before I give up my meds. Yes, I mean, these medications have changed our life. Christopher's lost over 100 pounds. I've lost 54 pounds. It's helped us in ways with our health that we don't even really understand, right? It's been such a life-changing medication. Michael Clanton says, Lilly's people are lacking in the legal battle, but that is to patients' advantage. So continue on, keep ordering refills. Yeah, I got an order of compounded Tirzepatide in from FedEx just this morning. So I'm going to continue to reorder my compounded until I can't. 3 left turns. Zep won't ever be on shortage. Now the Caremark took Nova money. Yeah, I figured somebody's going to bring this up. So looks like Caremark and Novo Nordisk struck a deal whereby if you have Caremark as your pharmacy benefit manager, you will only now be able to get Wegovy made by Novo Nordisk instead of Zepbound. Zepbound will no longer be on Caremark's preferred formulary list, so it won't be covered under. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And so it all becomes very complicated, and there are lots of people confused on Facebook chatting about it. So the corporation is CVS, and CVS, the corporation, owns CVS Caremark, CVS Health, which is the drugstore that you walk into in your local neighborhood, and they own Aetna. So they own an insurance company, a PBM, and a drugstore. So they've got everything. There's also in a number of states and federally a lot of people looking at this whole thing and trying to break it up. There's a lot of opportunities to lower cost with PBM reform or PBM elimination, with splitting up some of these companies so that they're not, because essentially they're making profits on every one of those things. So there's a huge amount of opportunity. Let's see here.
Rachel Reaper says, should compounders pay Lilly for the rights to make Lilly's products?
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, Lilly
don't want their money.
Lilly could theoretically license this, and they could go out and just do that. The challenge is they're not going to do it. If you look at the court cases that Lilly's doing against the pharmacies and the telehealths, they're asking for all the money they've made up till now,
Ever.
plus
times 3,
plus
plus
damages, plus all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, they don't want to partner with compounding pharmacies. They want compounding pharmacies to stop compounding Tirzepatide. Yeah, they're not looking at how do we get this medication to the most people possible. They're looking at how do we maintain our $35 billion a year profit, unfortunately, for you and me. Abby W. says FDA issued a notice yesterday, May 1st, that they will gather information from 250 503A compounding pharmacies out of concerning quality and safety problems. Sounds like they are retaliating.
There's no big surprise there. That's going to be the challenge is now that Lilly has poured all this legal money in, Novo will do the same thing. So it's not just them. There's going to be so much scrutiny on compounding pharmacies and telehealth that they look close enough. They're going to find issues, I assure you now. So those guys, they better be on the top of their game.
Hey, Taisha. Sorry to keep posting. Does everyone really expect Lilly to charge the same amount as Compound? It's one way for them to wipe it out, right? Do we expect them to drop their list price from over $1,000 a month to $199? I would enjoy that. I would.
Here's what I would tell you.
Be surprised if they did that. But that would be my preference.
Here's what I would tell you. I think if you believe the congressional budget estimates that this costs about $5 to make per dose, so it's about $20 a month, right? There's plenty of margin there, even if you add in costs for marketing and even if you add in costs for the innovation fees and building manufacturing. There's plenty of margin there to be able to lower their costs to $200 to $300.
And we know this because they sell it for these prices in other countries.
Yep. There's plenty of margin there. Are they going to do it? Do I really believe it? No, not really. There's a bunch of lawsuits around other things. Let's see. We got a super chat here.
It's Piggy. Personally, thank you for your super chat, Piggy. Personally, I feel like the judge is just covering his own ass here. These guys don't like appeals. Duly noted. FDA followed past practices for shortages, maybe flawed, but the judge can't Monday morning quarterback here.
Well, Piggy, that's actually what judging is Monday morning quarterbacking. I think you're probably right, though. I think you're probably right.
He did say, I'll go back and take a look at it. He doesn't want this escalated to a higher court and be overturned, because then, that makes him look bad. So if he overturns his own ruling, maybe he closes that opportunity for another judge to make him look bad. Yeah, that's valid.
I think there's all kinds of things.
An Ocean Blue fan. No problem with the legit compounding local pharmacy. Getting the name brand is like pulling teeth.
Now, Ocean Blue fan, what I would tell you is the challenge of compounding for local pharmacies for this is many of them, if not most, are not actually doing it locally.
Yeah.
Because most local compounding pharmacies are not set up to do injectable drugs. They don't have the facilities. Well, not all, but most of them.
Just as an example, in our town, we have a compounding pharmacy called Neil's Compounding Pharmacy. Of course, I've called Neil's Compounding Pharmacy when I was first on the search for medication. And Dr. Neil told me that he was mixing up the semaglutide compound there in the local pharmacy, but he was getting compounded Tirzepatide from a bigger compounding pharmacy because he didn't want to mix that up himself due to whatever. I don't know if it's more complicated.
Right, so they're buying it from 503Bs.
So he's buying it from somewhere else, a different compounding pharmacy, and then reselling it locally for kind of a high price. So I don't know. That was about a year ago when I talked to him.
So we'll do this one. Christy, I'm worried. I watched on the pin yesterday. Dave said CVS is dropping coverage for Zepbound and will only cover Wegovy. So let me clarify that a little bit, and I'll do it again. CVS, the drugstore, is owned by CVS Health, which also owns CVS Caremark, the PBM, and Aetna, the insurance company. The company that said they will not be selling, doing Zepbound is CVS Caremark. So if you have CVS Caremark, and Caremark is as your PBM that defines your formulary, which means they would pay for it, could be included, then you would only be able to get Wegovy and not Zepbound. Covered. CVS, the drugstore, has not said anything about whether they will continue to carry. I assume they will. They're a drugstore. They fill prescriptions. So you should still be able to walk into your local CVS and get it. It only impacts you if you have Caremark.
So, if you don't have Caremark, if you don't have insurance that covers your drug, you can still probably go into your local CVS and get Zepbound. They will still be able to order Zepbound for you. They're not stopping carrying that. That's like saying they're going to stop carrying Advil, like their drugstore. They carry whatever customers ask for most of the time, right? All right.
Let me see here.
Simply Taisha says, I hear you at Frazzled, but my point is, why would the expectation be that it would be the same when they have the actual patient patent and they've taken all the financial risks? Vials are an option. That the price would be the same. Eli Lilly can do whatever they want. They're charging $1,000 a month in the U.S. without, if you don't have insurance coverage. They can do whatever they want, and they do.
For me, the reason Lilly would do it is strictly financial, is they want to make more money. And the way to make more money is to increase the size of the pie, is to take more of that 74% of America that has overweight or obesity. So right now in the U.S., about 6% of U.S. patients that could have this drug have it. So there is so much of a runway to grow this business that the reason you lower prices is to do that, because you say, well, I can only get so big at $1,000 a shot because only so many people can afford it. But if I went to $4.99, which they just lowered their prices to on vials not too long ago, absolutely they could get a bigger piece. If they went to $200, absolutely they could get a bigger piece. If we look longer term out to next year and to the following year, if you all of a sudden have orforglipron as a pill available, I promise you they're looking at it and going, we can take Wegovy by coming in at a lower price and get all those patients, because they want to grow their business. Wall Street says grow, 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 and that's the American way.
Well, and you better know Eli Lilly is trying to figure out what PBM they can partner with after Novo just partnered with Caremark.
Caremark's the largest one in the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, Eli Lilly, a lot of people think Eli Lilly is using these lawsuits as PR, as free marketing, right? So
that's expensive free marketing.
They don't care. They're making $35 billion a year.
Yeah.
So there's so much.
Let's see here. CFC, if RFK gets his talons in on this.
Who knows?
So there's a lot of conversation politically around, will this administration be able to do something? They're talking about it. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I can tell you the challenge of a cabinet level member doing things like this is he can impact the way the FDA conducts the regulation. So he could go to the FDA and say, stop it or do it or whatever he wants to do. He can't change the law, right? Because that's not the way cabinet members work. But
let's all sit here
and
hold our breath until our government makes this right for us.
We're going to continue to fight to get them to do our government to have a better system, but I don't have a lot of faith in either side of the political aisle moving very quickly. So, Chrissy says she has Caremark. Sorry, Chrissy. Yeah.
Womp womp. Sandy Gervais says, I'm paying out of pocket from Lilly Direct, $3.49 for Zepbound, $2.5, and $4.99 for anything above. While I'm definitely not a fan of big pharma, and yes, it's still too expensive. So the problem with doing the vials is that if you need the upper 2 level doses of the vials, they're not available from Eli Lilly Direct, right? They only go up to 10.
Yep.
milligram. And if you do not reorder the vials within a 6-week period, they jack the price up.
Yep.
Thanks, Eli Lilly.
I suspect we'll see the other
Why would they
doses
do
in the
that?
next few months, though.
They don't want people splitting the vials. They don't want people sharing the doses. Chrissy says, I'm curious, what would you do? Go with Wegovy or search compounded Tirzepatide? We're Tirzepatide fans. So I would try to stay with compounded Tirzepatide. What would you do, Christopher? If that were you.
Well, right now the strategy is order, get it and stock up as much as you can.
Or
long term, I'm staying on it either way. So if I have to get a third job, that's what I'll do.
You have a lot of jobs these days. You know what? If my Zepbound was covered and I was paying like $25 for it out of pocket, and now I could get only Wegovy, but I could pay for it $25 out of pocket. Well, I'd probably go over to Wegovy. I would go with whatever is going to be the cheapest option for me.
Well, and honestly, that is always our recommendation around these drugs is
go with where your insurance will cover.
Right.
If your insurance don't cover.
Lots of people have lost a lot of weight on Wegovy. Have no fear. And you go on the Facebook. There's plenty of people that have lost lots and lots of weight on Wegovy. I mean, it works.
Wegovy works. I think some people report some maybe different side effects, but it's still a GLP-1 medication, right? German Garcia, hello from Barcelona. You've been such a helpful discovery. Thank you, guys. We're going to Barcelona.
Yeah, we actually just booked a cruise to Barcelona in 2026. So we'll do 15 nights, although transatlantic. So maybe we can connect in Barcelona in 2026. Here comes Piggy again. Hello, Piggy. Let me read it. Christopher, I love, but please remember 74% is a lot of people, but don't shoot me here. A good amount of the 74% are fat and happy. So the market potential is, even if it's half that, Piggy.
Ain't nobody fat and happy, Piggy.
Even if it's half that, even if it's 32%, even if it's 20%, you're still looking at a 15, at 15 points, it could increase. I promise you they're looking at growing their business.
Body positivity was a big thing, like on social media, right? Before these GLP-1s really came out. And then all these body positivity influencers got on GLP-1s, lost a bunch of weight and said, you know what? I wasn't happy at a bigger size. Happy, not happy, notwithstanding, it comes down to a health concern, right? Because if you're 50 pounds overweight, 100 pounds overweight or more, it is not a healthy situation. It can lead to type 2 diabetes, cardiac disease, sleep apnea. So, while people might like to think fat people are jolly, fat people are fat and happy, I was never fat and happy. Were you fat and happy?
I was happy, but I don't know that the fat part was there.
You know what I mean? So I disagree with you there, Piggy. I agree to disagree. But thank you for the super chat.
But I think the reality is, if you're sitting in the boardroom at Eli Lilly and you see the other 600 drugs that are literally in development right now around the world that are trying to steal Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound space, and they are coming for you, then your goal is to grow as quickly as you possibly can so that you can stave off any new guys coming along, right? So you're making a lot of money right now, but you're terrified of what's happening tomorrow. So they've got to grow. I mean, there's no question about it. No question about it. Let's see where we were here.
We're right here. Hit the like button, would you? Thanks. Yeah. Hit the like, hit the subscribe
Here's one for you.
Jav reported in the news today, UK government looking at offering GLP-1s for $9.90.
Well, that's sterling, yeah.
Over the counter. USA needs to sort out. Should we move to the UK?
Or at least take a trip.
Can we? How do we get them things in the UK? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely amazing, right? But their government is negotiating the price, right? Our government is not negotiating the price for us. Fresh eclecticism. Taisha, $200 a month is not unrealistic. It's a 10,000% profit margin, considering it only costs them $20 a month to make. Anything more than that is obscene. $35 billion a year they're making off this.
Yep.
Billion. How do you stock up? Doesn't your doctor limit refills? Well, Deborah, like and subscribe for all of our tips and tricks.
So there's ways, and it depends on who your doctor is, right? So I actually have both compounded and I have a prescription to Zepbound. So my local doctor is really good, and I work with them, and I can fill it about every 3 weeks. So if you do the math there, you could and I have to pay out of pocket, so it's not an insurance question. If you do the math there, I could actually get ahead a couple of shots every 4 months, right? You just get ahead.
Well, and a lot of online telehealth providers that are putting people like me to compounding pharmacies they don't really have a way to limit your refills. They don't really see how often you're reordering. So I get an order in the mail from Federal Express. I go place a reorder. It's taking some time to get these compounded refills because they're swamped, right? So it might take up to 14 business days to get another refill through the system, but I've usually got one in process all the time. And I do hear other people going to more than one telehealth provider, setting up accounts with different ones, getting refills from different compounding pharmacies. Compounding pharmacies don't talk to each other. You have a different provider with each online telehealth platform. Those are not connected. So that's just what I've heard around the
Simply
internet.
Taisha asked Fresh Eclecticism, how much does it cost compounding companies to make? We don't know the answer to that, Simply Taisha. What I would tell you is, because Larry and I have had this conversation many times, compounding pharmacies, telehealth companies are businesses. They are wildly profitable businesses, no matter what you've seen on any social media, YouTube interview, whatever, about how they're in it for the patient, they're in it for the dollar. Eli Lilly is a business, a wildly profitable business. They also are in it for the dollar.
Well,
so let's just level set. They're both making a lot of money.
So I listened to an interview with the CEO of Empower
Which is
Pharmacy,
where I would be skeptical of this interview.
Who is making a shit ton of money, by the way. Okay, let's just be clear. What he said, and you can go back and listen to this interview he did with Dr. Gabrielle Lyons on her podcast. He said the Empower Pharmacy looks at not how much money can they make off a patient, but what's the best price we can put this out at and bring the most patients into our care, into the compounding pharmacy. So to hear it from his point of view,
strategy, which
he's
Lilly
patient focused, and whereas Eli Lilly is profit focused. So IDK.
All that to be said, the challenge of telehealth is patient acquisition is extremely expensive. So we all see those ads every day on Facebook. You open it up right now and there's 10 ads for Hims and Hers and Orderly and all kinds of stuff. You get in your car and there's radio ads. You flip on the TV and they are spending hundreds of dollars per patient to acquire the patient.
They're making
but they're all making a lot of money.
So my refill through Mochi Health costs $199 a month for my compounded Tirzepatide prescription, right? So Mochi's making something on that. The compounding pharmacy is making something on that. I'm sure they're reimbursing the online provider that writes the prescription for that. As an influencer, influencers are getting credits for that. So that's a lot of pieces of that pie, a lot of that $199 pie. So it must be extremely profitable.
So Lori Amber says, why am I penalized being on Medicare and have to pay full price, almost $1,100 plus doctor fees? So the challenge of Medicare, Medicaid, and a lot of the government insurance pieces is there's actually federal law that prohibits the use of discount cards, coupon cards, and all those things if you're on Medicare. Because for some reason they see it as graft.
Something like yeah, we're not experts on that.
We're not, but that's what exists. And that's something that you should be appealing to your congressman, your senator, to get changed, because that's strictly a legal change that would have to happen. The other thing that could happen was that obesity would move forward defined as a disease according to Medicare or Medicaid, because right now Medicare can't pay for weight loss drugs. Right?
I thought the American Medical Association has defined obesity as it is.
American Medical Association has, however, the FDA does not interpret. So it's all, there's a lot of legal stuff that has to happen, and there's law that's prohibiting Medicare people from using.
Well, and that's driving a lot of
cards.
people on Medicare to compounded pharmacies.
Yeah.
I mean, and why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Let's see here.
This stuff works. Y'all know. I think everybody we're talking to out here is probably on a GLP-1 or is thinking about a GLP-1. So like and subscribe to our channel. We're here every day. we be talking to you every day. So yeah, you know, it's we plan to stay on these medications long term, for life, however you want to phrase it, right? Kat C says, what is the difference between compounding pharmacies and these companies where you can buy all sorts of peptides, which
Well, so stop. So a compounding pharmacy is a 503A or a 503B. 503A pharmacies are regulated by the state that it's in. So if it's in California, it's regulated by California, and so on. 503B is federally regulated. So there are regulations and safety and all sorts of things happening there. Those companies that you see on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of that are advertising peptides that you mix up yourself are what's called the gray market. And that's stuff that's being shipped to you, and it is labeled both on the website and on the bottle as not for human consumption. It is not something that we recommend. I'm not judging you if that's what you want to do. It is a lot cheaper. The challenge is no matter what they say, there is no regulation that is making sure that's safe, that's making sure it's tested, that's making sure that it is actually the medication it's supposed to be and not something that's either ineffective or dangerous. So be very careful.
Things that you're injecting into your body, you should not be mixing up in your home. That's my stance on that. And if it says not labeled for human consumption, you should not put it in your body. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Let's see.
Also, the place where these compounding pharmacies are buying the peptides have to be approved by the FDA for them to buy it. They're not just buying it from some guy on the internet, right?
Mel B, thank you for the super chat. Says, what's going on? I missed the start. Once again, a Friday morning surprise. Taisha thankfully told me you were live. Basically, Mel B, I went through for a long time, step by step, and quoted the judge. The transcripts came back from the hearing that happened this past week. And the judge was asking some hard questions and giving the FDA a little bit of hell. The judge has not ruled, so we do not know how it's going to happen. And it may be tomorrow. It may be several months before there's any ruling on that. But if you go back, there's a lot of detail in there. Does it give you any indicator of how he's going to rule? It was good to see him asking questions, but no, not really. As Piggy asked no more, faithful viewer pointed out, judges don't like to be overturned, so they want to be seen as asking.
So the judge is going back and reviewing his initial decision, and he might give us an answer at some point in the future after he's done reviewing, however long that takes. And this is in regards to
compounded Tirzepatide.
Did the FDA act too quickly in taking Zepbound and Mounjaro off the shortage list?
And did they have the appropriate processes in place? Did they do the appropriate audits? All of that. So, you know, there's a whole lot of detail. There's a 73-page transcript that I pulled direct quotes on. So if you have a few moments, go rewind and hit a listen. There's 370 people out there. Hello, everybody. I'm Christopher Durham.
I'm Lorraine Durham.
And we are the Downsize. Thanks for joining us. There's 194 likes. If you're just joining us, there was about 30 minutes of me talking about the whole court transcripts. So lots and lots of detail in there. Please take a look at it. We continue to fight for affordability and accessibility. We continue to believe that these medications should be available to everyone who medically needs them. We continue to believe, whether it's a pipe dream or not, that Eli Lilly can lower their prices, grow their share, and make this more accessible.
Reminds me of that song.
What's
I
the
Still
song?
Believe. We went on a cruise and Brenda K. Starr was on the cruise. Remember that? And her big hit was I Still Believe from the 80s. I still believe. I will not be singing that at karaoke anytime soon. Don't worry. Chasing Sunshine says, I hope Judge Pittman's review will mean good news for us all and shed more light on the other side and how much is skewed to serve their interests.
Let's hope so. I mean, we just do not know.
I mean, so if Zepbound went back on the shortage list, I mean, floodgates would open wide up for compounding, right? Like everybody could compound it again honestly, with no different doses or adding niacinamide or whatever. They could just make it because it would be legal because it would be on the shortage list.
I think at this point, Lilly would say, we're going to release the rest of the vials, and Lilly could then go source vials from, there's vial manufacturers all around the world. They could get those made quickly and cheaply and easily. And I think they would rather source vials than have it be back on the shortage list. I don't know that I believe it'll ever be on there very long. I just don't.
Is there news when you're due to get Cagrosema in the States? As you'll be first.
There is. You're looking at, and we did a report.
Least, right?
We did a report. I think they've got a couple more trial phases, and it will certainly be the end of next year, if not the beginning of the following year. The numbers were promising on Cagrosema. They were not as promising as Retatrutide, but they looked like they were right there with Tirzepatide, which even if they were with Tirzepatide and they could come in and that you might see a price battle. So all of a sudden, it's like having a Chevy, a Ford, a Honda, or whatever, or all of a sudden you have a Kia and a Hyundai come in that's $10,000 less. Well, why not have a price battle over?
I think the next drug we're due to see is orforglipron, which hopefully will come out in 2026 and will be a pill. It will not be an injection. It will not need refrigeration. So that'll cause some waves, right? Dana Cimarelli says, none of the pharmacies around me have Zepbound available now. There you go. Shortage. Put it on the shortage list. Simply Taisha says, at Fresh Eclecticism. I said it right the first time.
Yeah.
The important question is, how do we fix this? There are a lot more of us than them.
And there are so many layers of things that needed to be fixed. And going back, because Taisha, your point about all the innovation stuff, the reality of American innovation is much of it happens in universities early on, and it is funded by the American, us, by you and I, by citizens. It's funded by the taxpayers, by federal dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Why we're funding research that we don't then own a piece of the development that came out of that, I don't understand. So if I'm giving money to Harvard, to Cornell, to whoever, and it then flows up, and 3 years later, Eli Lilly is making money off of what we funded the research on. There should be some way for us to manage that price, and honestly, American people to get a little bit of piece of it and make sure our price is correct. Beyond that, PBMs have to go. Beyond that, there should be some conversation around pricing and margin for medications like this. So certainly all companies should make a profit, but there has to be a top to the profit. And we see in many other places where some states the price of milk is regulated, in some states the price of cigarettes, in some states the price of gas. I mean, there's plenty of things where there's top regulations on. There's also an opportunity for the United States to say there could be a public-private partnership where we work together with some of these companies to help develop some of these, to help fund the manufacturing plants, and we get more benefits and lower prices and quicker to market. And this is arguably a national defense problem at some point if 74% of America is overweight and obese or has overweight and obesity. Federal highways were funded that way. COVID vaccines, and I know if I mentioned those, everybody loops out, but there's plenty of opportunities to fix this, and there's a lot of ways we could do it. Let's see here.
Nerd Startup Incubator. Lilly needs to release the 12.5 and 15 milligram vials ASAP so that people can also save money who need higher doses. Agreed. Not sure why Novo can offer all doses and Lilly cannot. I think Lilly
just a decision
will at some point, because whatever Novo does, Lilly's got to match it move for move, right? So They probably will very soon. Tara Hill, just started Ozempic 6 weeks ago from my functional medicine doctor. All this is so confusing. Trying to understand it all. Thank you for helping us all in this journey. It is confusing, Tara, right? Like, whoever knew about compounding pharmacies and pharmacy benefit managers? And what do you mean a shortage list? And So I hope you'll subscribe because we're here to help fill in some of those questions. Simply Taisha says, Christopher, I didn't know that. I admit there is a hell of a lot that I just don't know. Yeah, same,
Me too.
Same girl. I just think complaining isn't solving anything. We need to act. I just don't know what that action should be. You know what? This is the action we're taking. We know that Eli Lilly watches our videos, and so we are appealing directly to the entity that could really just make a change. We can try to appeal to our government. You can write your congressman.
I think the answer is all of the above.
I think we feel like the most effective plea is to Eli Lilly to be the hero, right? Eli Lilly wants people to have a nice opinion of them, and they certainly could achieve that.
Well, they want to make money.
They want to make money.
They want to make money. I mean, so do they ever get to the 74% of America? Probably not. That's a silly number. That's like saying I'm going to sell one thing to everybody in China. But if the total market for GLP-1s today is 6%, even if Lilly could add a couple of percentage points, they would add billions and billions and billions of dollars to their bottom line in both top line sales and margin. I promise you they would. Even at $200, $300.
I mean, they could do it if they wanted to.
Absolutely, they could.
They could do it. They can do anything they want. I hear JoJo crying. Jeff says, there's so many companies pushing to get into the GLP-1 space. Will be good for all.
Right. So, I mean,
More competition is always good,
although
right?
it's easy to worry, and we talk about we'll be on these medications for a lifetime, and I do believe we will. The state of these medications 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now will look completely different. The competition will look different. The number of choices you have will look different. The pricing will look different, and the players will look different. So, the challenge for Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly both right now is to stay relevant in this mix. And it's going to take innovation. It's going to take pricing, because I can show you 100 different things, different categories, where all of a sudden the leader, the person who started it, is basically non-existent. Anybody remember word perfect out there? Right? If you're old enough, well, go buy word perfect today. It doesn't happen. But Microsoft Word, but Google, but whatever. So the innovators can come along and change things. The whole thing can change. Super chat.
Mel B. Thanks, Mel B, for your super chat. I agree with Taisha. We have the power. I'm not a compound advocate per se, but I am an advocate for patient access. Would you mind putting the transcript on the Downsize website, please? The transcript of the lawsuit?
I don't. Let me look at so we get all of this information from a federal database called PACER Monitor, and I don't know that I can do that because it's a paid thing. Let me look at the terms and conditions.
Transcript from your initial monologue.
I can. Let me look at the terms and conditions of that. I don't know that I can publish it without getting in trouble. But
yeah,
if I can, I will, for sure.
We have a website called thedownsize.org where we have links to information, to our Amazon store. We're Amazon affiliates. We make small commissions on those purchases. We're having a downsize cruise presented by Mochi. You can join us for a cruise with other people on GLP-1s, and you can join our email list because maybe we'll send out an email someday. But yeah, that's thedownsize.org. Nerd Startup Incubator says, I admit using Lilly Direct to receive the vials via overnight delivery works well for me. All right. It's a matter of time before they add the other doses. They may lower prices due to political, social pressure. Yeah, I mean, if that works for you, then I'm all for it.
And honestly, we will do that if we need to.
And I've been moving down in my dose. Currently, I had gone all the way up to a 12.5 milligram dose of compounded Tirzepatide. Now I'm down to 5. And I'm even wondering if I could get to 2.5, because if I can get to 2.5, That is $3.99 with the Lilly Direct vial. And my doctor here locally said she would write that for me if I decided to go that route. So it's always good to have a hometown doctor that knows about your journey and that can help you. Jazzy MDG says, thank you for this update, Downsized. Really appreciate it. You're welcome, Jazzy. Thanks for being a member of Club Downsized.
All right. And we're going to get out of here in just a minute. So we should also be fighting our insurance companies for not covering the medication. Oh, yeah. That's the challenge is there's every level. Every level. So you need to talk to your congressman. You need to talk to your insurance company. You need to talk to the business you work for. Because they're the ones who are selecting what gets included in your insurance.
Yeah. So we're self-employed. So when we first went on this, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina for self-employed people, which doesn't cover any weight loss medicine. So I said, but a doctor still sent a prior authorization to the insurance company, and the insurance company said, well, no. And so I was like, well, I don't understand. Like, it just didn't make any sense that if my doctor, anyway. It's challenging, right? There's so many things places where we try to fight. Ask your insurance company, ask your employer, ask your politicians, ask the manufacturer, Eli Lilly. Like,
Mel B says, no problem. I can watch the replay of the beginning or try to get it myself online. I might be able to do that. I don't know. I haven't looked at what the terms and agreement.
Just send it to Mel B. Just send the transcript of what you said earlier. We'll get you, Mel B. Don't worry. Nerd Startup Incubator says 2.5 is $3.49, so even more. I know, but I get it for super cheap from Mochi because I sent a gazillion people over to Mochi, and I have a gazillion credits, of which I can only use 4 per month. So anyway, I digress. Simply Taisha says, I'm thankful to have TRICARE, but who knows? I have coverage today, but it could be gone tomorrow. And that's what people worry, right? Because a lot of people are losing coverage that they have for Zepbound, like all those Caremark people. Jenny Wellman says, Lilly just stopped selling vials, Manjaro, here in Sweden. Why? So hopefully it will go to the U.S. and the higher doses will be released. Oh, Jenny, I'm sorry. I don't know what that has to, why they do that.
In a bunch of countries, they've been going to the quick pen. So,
maybe you can get the pen, but not the vials. I'm sure in Sweden you don't pay $1,000 a month for it, so hopefully you get a better price. It's Darium. Good afternoon, Durham. Is it afternoon? I got some stuff I got to do.
It's lunchtime.
The Quotable News Source and Downsiders. Thanks, Darium. It's nice to see you. Thanks for being a member of Club Downsides. All right, y'all, click like and subscribe to our channel. And hit the notification bell so when Christopher Durham wants to make another live, you get a notification. You can say, what is that crazy man reporting on now? And doesn't he have anything else to do in his day? And doesn't he also have a full-time job? The answers to all those things are yes. So do that for us, please. We appreciate it. And thanks for watching. And
absolutely. My name is Christopher Durham.
Oh, I guess we're done now.
Yeah, I think we're done. I mean, it's,
right.
We've been here. If you got questions, leave comments. Tell us about your journey, the whole 9 yards. Tell us what you think of the court cases.
Oh, in Sweden, they have the quick pen. It costs $150 to $400 a month. Okay, good. All right, Jenny.
All right. That's us for today. I'm Christopher Durham.
I'm Lorraine Durham.
We are the Downsides. We'll see you next time.
Bye.